Welcome to the Good Karma Sport Fishing Podcast. I'm your host, Captain Ryan Van Fleet. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. So it's early season dolphin fishing, and as I mentioned in a previous podcast, I said that there were going to be some large fish caught here over the past couple weeks, and there were some really nice ones. So a lot of stuff isn't showing up on Instagram, so I want to let you guys know that there's been quite a few large bulls and cows taken off of Key Largo, 30 to 40 pounders, and yeah, so it's just really nice. So there's a lot of small fish out there, and there's also a lot of weed. So it is what it is with the weed, and it's one of those things where it's a love-hate relationship. We all want to go out there. We all want to have a great day and catch some nice dolphin, but it's a lot harder than it used to be because of all the weed, okay? The ocean's changing, and honestly, I can see it. You can see it out there. I know a lot of guys can too, and I constantly hear it. There's a hell of a lot more weed than there was. So the ocean's definitely changing, and we have to change with it, meaning that we what we did 5 years ago, we may not be able to do for some time now. We have to change. And if you're not willing to change, then you're going to get left in the dust. I read a quote the other day. It's like the guy that has a plan is going to kick the other guy's ass that's very good at what he does, that doesn't have a plan. So you may be out there fishing against somebody that's really good. He may be sitting next to you, but if he doesn't have a plan to fish that weed that particular day and you do, you're going to outfish him, okay? You're going to have a better box than he does. So meaning that, and that really comes into play with tournament fishing, okay? So like there's a lot of tournaments down here now and everybody wants to get involved in that chance to win that big money, but if you don't really know what's going on out there as far as the way the weeds moving weekly, how it's scattered, and you have to have a few different scenarios in your brain before you run out and looking for dolphin and this kind of stuff. And you have to, like, if you have guys that are with you and you have to prepare them for what's going to happen, you got to make sure that they're not all like tired, and you got to make sure that they're up on their game because they may have to pull weeds all day. That's just how shit's going to work. The captain shouldn't have to pull weeds. He needs to be on the wheel looking for fish. And when your captain has to start pulling weeds, it's all over, it's all over, guys. So that's just how it works. And if you're fishing by yourself, you're going to have to fish smarter, which I have to do. So I have a plan. I have to have a plan if I decide to go dolphin fishing. And if I don't feel it's right, then I don't go. Okay? So I'm doing more live bait fishing for dolphin than I ever have because of the weed. And also, too, I'm looking for patterns. Now, this is where I want to get into patterns, because weed, there is a pattern when it comes to weed. So some mornings you run out there, it's all scattered around because there's no current, okay, or there's no wind, and you may have to suck it up and go deep dropping for a while. It's worth investing in an electric reel. They don't cost that much. If you're spending that much money in fuel and all in bait and stuff, then I highly suggest you invest in an electric reel. And say, spend a little time out there probing the bottom, okay? And then in the afternoons, that weed it'll push together. And that's when those fish will start coming together. You'll start seeing a little bit more activity. And you could really capitalize in a very short amount of time and look like a hero in a short amount of time. So in other words, what I'm saying is you got to figure out some patterns, okay? So that's where I'm going to try to help you guys with the fishing reports this year. I'll try to tell you what the weed is doing, what I see. Now, what I seen last week was the frigate birds were popping up at around 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, okay? Now, I didn't do any dolphin fishing last week, but I know because I just didn't. It wasn't in my agenda. And when I go fishing for one species, I'm staying very focused. That's my plan. Okay, if I get spun up and chasing birds while I'm trying to catch mutton snappers or groupers, then I could spend 2 hours chasing a frigate bird, and and I may not catch him. I may not catch up with him, and then that's 2 hours of wasted time that I typically have to give back to the client. So, for me, I have to stay focused. So I don't like when I'm out there bottom fishing, I see a bird pop up, unless it feels right, I don't go chase it. So I really have to trust my gut and my intuition, okay? because I have a plan, and my plan is to bottom fish. Now, unless something else tells me otherwise, then I'll go chase some dolphin. So, in other words, you got to make changeovers. You have to, like, all of a sudden you just can't go dolphin fishing because you got to put in some work. And sometimes by the time you get all the rods done, set, and all that other stuff going, the fish are already gone. So, but there's other instances where you're out there fishing and you see maybe a weed line setting up out there. You can see how the birds are flying. You really got to keep your eyes on the birds and see how they're pecking and see which way they're moving. And that'll tell you if it's worthwhile. You really just got to be aware of your surroundings and what's happening and so forth. So, but for me, what I've talked about in the past, when I start seeing all that activity on the water, I know my bottom fishing is really going to fire up, and it does. So what I'm seeing on the surface as far as birds pecking and all that stuff and bonitos popping, my bottom, when I start seeing that, the bottom fishing's on fire. So that's just how it works for me if I'm in a particular area. So in other words, I have a plan. Now, if you're going to go out there and go dolphin fishing, you got to have a plan, okay? You have to. You're going to have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C of how you're going to attack weed this year. So just keep that in mind. If you really want to pull daisy chains in big pots of weeds, good luck to you. You're going to snag, okay? They're heavy. They like to dig. They like to grab. So that's just how it's going to roll. If you like to pull those 2-hook daisy chains, which I don't because you're only asking for problems with those. So, oh, and also if you're buying that stuff, make sure you guys are checking whether they're crimped or not, okay? I recently bought a 2-hook rig for catching. I wanted to see how these things were made, really, and I bought one and I pulled on the hook and the crimp came undone. So I was like, wow, I just paid $15 for a pre-made 2-hook rig that's advertised all over the internet, and it wasn't crimped correctly. So I could have lost a big fish. So what I want you guys to do is really check that stuff, and that goes along with checking cedar plugs, anything that's pre-made. You guys better be pulling on those crimps before you set it. That's just FYI. These are top brands too, because I see a lot of shit going wrong with top quality hook manufacturers, with stuff that's coming from overseas. So you better be triple checking that stuff, okay? So that's a part of your plan. If you plan on using that stuff, you need to check it. And don't rely on something that comes out of a package. Billy baits especially with hooked, pre-hooked, okay? You need to check that stuff. Just don't send it. Check that crimp. And like I said, I checked 2 different packages and they both broke when I put the pressure on them myself with my hands. So that was part of my plan. So one thing I want also too, when it comes to developing a plan for going out there, is you got to think about what you're going to run as far as what doesn't catch weed. So for example, I tell people the best thing you can do is to purchase sea witches that have light hair on them. They cannot be heavy. They got to be really light. Okay, and you have to learn how to run those baits over the weeds like you do buzz baits over lily pads so they won't snag into the weed. So you do that by running faster and trying to get those baits high. Okay, hooks I like to use. I like to use those Mustad tarpon hooks, number 8s, number 7s. The hook curves in a little bit, and that really helps keep the weed off. So there's lots of little things you can do. And you really got to invest in some outriggers, okay? If you really want to troll bad enough, then you're going to invest in some outriggers. You're going to get the baits higher up, and you're going to run the bait shorter. So there's lots of different things you can do. And in the rigging crew, I'm going to teach guys how I'm making weedless baits now and stuff that really help. So I've developed some weedless baits. I'm going to teach them how to run their ballyhoos and heavy stuff. And that's the stuff we're doing in the rigging crew. And again, that's the private group. The cost of the private group is $49 a month, and it's a 2-hour seminar. And then we also utilize a private Facebook group. So if you're interested in joining it, it's more than what you're going to get a lot out of it, in other words. So, And one of it, like the topics I'm going to cover this month, I'm covering blackfin tunas, and I'm covering weedless baits. So that's what I'm doing this month in May. And bait strips. Yes, bait strips kick ass. Now, if you really want to run weedless baits, run the bait strips, okay? Don't run heavy ballyhoo because they like to dig in. If you do like to run ballyhoo, you better be running dink ballyhoo because they're lighter. So there's just so much you can do. It's like you really got to think. A lot of guys are into throwing bucktails. Bucktails are great and they work really well. They're awesome. So think about running gun and throwing some bucktails, drifting up and down the weed lines, doing some more sight fishing, chunking. So, which leads me to my favorite thing to do. And I haven't been able to do a lot of it because I haven't been dolphin fishing. And my favorite thing to do out there when I'm dolphin fishing is I like to throw the Halco rooster popper. I really love throwing that, okay? And what you can do is you can still throw that thing in weed, but you got to throw it into the potholes. Okay, and that's one thing I used to love doing when I was a kid was we'd go to the ponds and we would find these big mats of weeds and there'd be a pothole. What I'm calling a pothole is a big opening in the weed mat. And what we would do is we would throw the baits into the middle of these potholes. And you have to be very accurate on your casts, okay? So what we would do is throw the spinner baits into the big holes that were open. And then we would buzz them in those centerpieces because the fish were going to be hiding underneath them. And boom, once that bait hits the clean water in the middle of all this mess, they pop on it, okay? So the Halco rooster popper is, in my opinion, it's the best popper on the market, okay? Because the fish go absolutely crazy for this thing. And you can find it in my store. And you got to get the flying fish color. I've used them all. I've used the Ozuris. I've used them all. But I always come back to the Rooster Papa. I always do. I think it's a badass one. It's the 135. Don't get the real big one. Get the medium-sized one. That's the one I have in my store. It kicks ass. I blind cast that thing on the hump, and it raises tunas. So if you really want to have some fun and do some sight fishing, that's what I recommend you buy. You can go into my store. It's in there. You go to the mahi and tuna lures. It's the Halco rooster popper. You need to get it. And especially when you're like approaching some, like, honestly, I've had some of my best dolphin days with this, and it's just a badass lure, and it catches really big fish, okay? Really big fish. It really gets bulls fired up. And it's a hell of a lot of fun to see those fish explode on a popper. I don't like any other brands. I really don't. And that includes the Nomad brand. And then that's part of my plan. It's part of my plan when I go out there. When I'm going out there to go serious dolphin fishing and I met with a bunch of weed, typically what I do is I have a bunch of live baits with me and I'll say, I'm sorry guys, we can't troll. But what we can do is we can do a little bit of sight fishing around this stuff if there's a lot of weed. So we'll come up on it, and I'll throw some chunk, maybe some squid, or I'll throw a live bait, and we'll just drift by the weed, and we'll just let it swim. Once the fish come out, or I'll have a guy or I'll bomb the popper back, and I'll start tossing at it, and I'll get fish to come out. And even if they don't eat the popper, I'll have a guy ready with a live bait behind me. The old bait and switch works amazing. It's more intense, and you really got to be on the ball when it comes to it, and that's where you got to have somebody on your boat that's awake, okay? That's awake and full of caffeine that can and has really good sunglasses that can see the fish and how they're moving, okay? So next time you're fishing like some debris or something, come in there on that debris and start throwing that popper, man. Watch what's going to happen. It's crazy how well that rooster popper works. And you have to remember is that's the original Australian lure. So have a plan this year. And I really want you guys to listen to my fishing reports that I'm going to put out if you're really into the dolphin fishing, because I will try to help you guys when it comes to as far as when the frigate birds are popping up, what the weed is doing. Now, I can help you with this when I'm out there. Last weekend, the weed was everywhere. But the the fish were south on heavier matzo weed, okay? They were outside the hump. And those that were down there, they did well. They found larger mats, and they killed the fish. They really did. The guys in my marina that came in that found the mats of weed that were all put together, maybe I think the current was a little stronger down there. I'm not sure what the hell was going on, but they crushed them. Nice ones too, guys. Nice ones. And these were just average dudes. They were just average guys. So they found some mats of weed down there and they set up. Usually, like I said, another part of the plan is you got to go back into your historicals and look, when are they popping up? What time did you get them last year? I saw a pattern last year that it was really good mid-afternoon, okay? Really good mid-afternoon into the evening. That's what I seen. That's when they popped up. So just be aware of that. Make sure you have live bait. Honestly, if you're going to go out there this year and compete with 1,000 boats on the weekend, you better have some live bait. Otherwise, you better have a plan B. And that's the truth, okay? Because if you find a log and somebody comes in on you and they have live bait, they're going to take them away from you, okay? It's going to be an overly aggressive year. So I'm just saying, and you're going to have to fish smarter and have a plan. So have stuff ready for run and gun, okay, if that's what you really want to do. I don't do that because I don't like it. Have stuff ready for drift fishing. Drift fishing is awesome. You can really destroy the dolphin early season on making some drifts because that's just the way it works, especially on a calm day. If you get it set up right and you're just cruising those mats, you can throw some pilchards at those mats. You can throw some squid. They'll come out. Next thing you know, you look up, there's a barrel floating by you, loaded up. So there's just so much that you can see, too, that you cannot see when you're making a drift, okay? So get that Halco Rooster Popper. Order it through my site, okay? It is awesome. So I want to leave you guys with a funny story today. You guys all know that I'm not a fan of those Nomad plugs, okay? And I was trolling the Nomad plug, the Mascad. I wasn't getting bit, and it was driving me crazy. So I decided that I was going to pull this Mascad, and I was marking fish. So I pulled the Mascad, and he said, you know what, I'm going to try those hooks on my Halco. And so I removed the Halco hook. I removed the Mascad hooks, and I put them on the Halco. So I just want to try some single inlines, and I always do that just to try something different. So I went ahead and I removed the hooks. And I put them on the Halco Laser Pro 190. That bait fish color. I sent it down on the downrigger, and I got whacked. I caught it like a 30-pounder, 30-pound wahoo, and I've been trolling that Mascad, not catching shit. Because I really wanted to give that Mascad a try. I really did. I really wanted to prove that I could catch a fish on that damn thing. So, but I didn't. Anyways, it's nothing against Nomad. I make a lot of jokes, and a lot of people take me seriously. And when it comes to that, it really comes down to your preference, what you like. And Nomad makes a pretty good lure. A lot of guys catch fish on them. I personally don't. It's just how shit rolls. So maybe someday I will, but I probably won't be throwing them I probably won't be putting them out anytime soon because I just really love the Halco brand. And I'm not sponsored by them, and it's just been a great lure for me. So that's why I talk a lot about it, because it's made a lot of people smile, and it has come through in a pinch for me quite often, that is. It has come down to the bottom of the ninth, and that lure has produced. It has. So I want to leave you guys with that. So like I said, before I sign off, make sure you guys have a plan. And trust your gut, too, when it comes to your plan. I trusted my gut with that Nomad. I had a plan, and my plan was that I was going to pull the Nomad and put the Halco out. And my intuition told me to replace the trebles with the singles, so I did. Whether that made a difference, probably not. Did I see a little bit more action in the Halco? I did. a little bit more wiggle. I did. Seen a little bit more wiggle in that bait, a little bit more tail shake. So, and as you guys all know, it's about that wiggle. That's all I got, guys. Signing out all officially. Have a good weekend. Stay tuned for that fishing report on my app. Follow me on Instagram, Good Karma Sport Fishing _FL_keys. Sign up for my newsletter on my website. Go to my website, hit subscribe, and you will get my free ebook. Okay? What will happen is you'll get an email. You'll say there'll be a link in blue writing. Click on that, and you'll get the link to my ebook. That's it. Have a good one. And remember, anytime you're fishing, it's all good. Thanks, guys.